I'm 35, female, single, and child-free by choice. I run a logistics software company that operates remotely with teams spread across the globe. I live alone, travel often, and answer to no one. I've never felt the urge to change that. Not for a man, not for a baby, not for anyone. But if you were to ask my extended family, you'd think I was some kind of unfinished project. My family is big, loud, and tangled like a never-ending group chat. Everyone's in everyone's business. And no matter the occasion, birthdays, reunions, funerals, it always comes back to babies. Who's pregnant, who's breastfeeding, who's got the best stroller. It's like a never-ending baby product commercial. At first, it was just a few awkward smiles and you'll understand when you're a mom comments. I let it go. But over time, it got worse. I started noticing a pattern. Every family event was an ambush. One year at Easter, someone asked if I'd frozen my eggs yet. At a baby shower, an aunt laughed that my uterus must have expired like old milk. I'd be pouring wine or passing deviled eggs while someone joked about my wasted maternal instincts. The jokes got bolder, the tone less playful. It wasn't teasing anymore. It was judgment dressed up as humor. And I haven't even gotten to the money part. I make good money. Really good. Tech startup, smart investments, early hustle. It gave me freedom, but in my family, freedom made me suspect. The running theory seemed to be, if I wasn't spending on diapers, why wasn't I pouring my extra money into helping out their kids? To them, I wasn't living smart. I was living selfish. Last Thanksgiving, things hit a boiling point. We were all packed into my aunt's house, kids running around, turkey drying out in the oven, and my cousin Jenna, who's basically the unofficial family spokesperson, decided to make me her after dinner entertainment. She raised her glass and said, to the woman with perfect genes and no plans to use them, cheers to another year of handbags over heritage. Some people laughed. Some looked uncomfortable. No one said a word in my defense. Not even my parents. They just stared at their plates. A few months later, we had a big family reunion. Everyone was there. I brought a couple bottles of really good wine. Nothing crazy, just something nice. As I set them down, my brother's wife leaned over and said, loud enough for the table to hear, well, we knew you'd never bring kids. But hey, at least you bring the booze. People chuckled again. That time I didn't fake a smile. I just walked away. After that, things got quiet. Group texts with my cousins stopped. I'd see people post photos from gatherings I wasn't invited to. Baby showers, BBQs, even funerals. One cousin posted about a family-only brunch. Every person in the photo was someone I'd grown up with. They hadn't even told me it was happening. I went from being part of the family noise to a complete outsider. And honestly, it stung. I didn't lash out. I didn't post rants online or call anyone out. I just redirected my energy. My company had been doing some low-key charity work for a while, tech classes, remote job training, donations to shelters, but I decided to scale that up. I focused on programs that helped single moms learn digital skills, apply for better jobs, and access childcare so they could actually attend the training. I didn't plaster my name on anything. No branding, no press. And here's where it gets interesting. In one of our board meetings, a new public-private initiative came across our desk. It offered tax incentives to companies that funded education and childcare programs in underserved areas. It was exactly the kind of policy that opens doors if you're creative. And I was in a very creative mood. I started running the numbers. Then I started asking questions. What if I could build something? Something that started small but could grow to support hundreds of families over time. What if it worked so well that even the people who mocked me ended up depending on it? And what if they never even knew it came from me? I didn't want applause. I wanted leverage. So I built it. Quietly, strategically. I funneled the funds through a third-party nonprofit. We offered after-school care, educational workshops, literacy programs, and job training. Every benefit came with a structure, attendance, progress reports, effort, no handouts, just opportunity. And then came the twist. Over the course of the first year, the program gained traction. Schools appreciated it. Parents gradually lined up. My relatives, those same ones who'd laughed at me over turkey and wine, started posting online about this amazing new foundation that had saved their sanity. Jenna's kid was in the after-school reading club. My brother's wife was attending a career readiness course. They had no idea I was behind it. They praised the donor at church potlucks. They gushed at school board meetings. They called the mystery funder an angel, all while still making their little comments when I showed up to birthdays or weddings. It was surreal. I didn't argue. I didn't correct anyone. I just smiled, nodded, and watched them build their lives on the backbone of my selfishness. It wasn't revenge. It was structure. The program took off faster than we expected. By the end of the first full year, over 1,200 families were enrolled. Parents signed up for after-school care, job training, financial literacy classes, and weekend upskilling workshops. Some schools even offered space for evening classes. We hired coordinators, built a rotating staff of tutors, and extended hours for working parents. Every week brought new applications. It was anonymous by design. My company funded everything, but through a third-party nonprofit that had no direct link back to me. Even the school boards didn't know who wrote the checks. They just knew the money showed up, the results were real, and the public reports looked good. We kept the entry bar clear but strict. If you wanted access to the benefits, you had to show that you were working or enrolled in an accredited course. That was non-negotiable. The idea wasn't to hand things out, it was to remove the blocks that kept people stuck. Pretty quickly, it reached people close to me. Jenna qualified because of her part-time admin job. So did my sister-in-law, who had just started an online graphic design course. They posted updates on Facebook almost daily. Photos of kids at the reading club, screenshots of their class certificates, videos from the free science fair kits we distributed. They called it a lifesaver. They didn't connect the dots. Not yet, at least. At the same time, in person, nothing changed. The jokes kept coming. Someone joked at a barbecue about me being allergic to commitment. Another time, Jenna made a toast at a baby shower and added, "Not all women are cut out for diapers and discipline. Some prefer spreadsheets." I just sat back and watched them clink glasses while praising a mystery funder whose money came straight from the account they'd spent years mocking. Behind the scenes, we kept tightening the program. Everyone had to attend financial literacy sessions. They had to submit quarterly progress logs. We tracked attendance. We had a help desk. We made exceptions for emergencies, but if you skipped things or didn't engage, your access was paused. And that's exactly what happened with a handful of participants. A few parents missed their workshops, forgot to submit updates, or skipped out on their kids' scheduled after-school pickups. Their profiles were flagged. When services got paused, they complained. One mom went on a mini rant in a PTA group about too much red tape. I recognized the name. She was a cousin's neighbor. As the results rolled in, local businesses started taking notice. One construction firm offered to sponsor new work boot stipends for moms in trade school. Another tech company provided refurbished laptops. Suddenly, we weren't just funding support, we were building a regional network. What started as a quiet, personal experiment had grown into something too big to ignore. Still, most people hadn't connected it back to me. Jenna once gave a loud, dramatic thank you speech at a parent potluck, praising the foundation for making daycare manageable for the first time in her life. That same night, she made a joke about me being the family lone wolf who brings wine instead of wisdom. I was 5 feet away. At a birthday dinner, one cousin leaned over and asked if I knew anyone on the inside. I told her I'd heard it was super competitive, then passed the mashed potatoes. That same cousin later sent me a LinkedIn request. The numbers told their own story. Standardized test scores at participating schools jumped. Parent employment rates ticked upward. Local businesses reported higher employee retention. The city's social services load lightened in our target zip codes. All of that, measured and tracked, month by month. I never had to explain anything. They were building their lives on a system I controlled without knowing they were playing on my chessboard. Then came the first glitch in the pattern. Jenna's husband applied for a tech skills course. It was a new addition to the program, basic coding and data entry training with job placement support. But he didn't finish the required digital literacy module and missed the submission deadline. His application got denied automatically. The rant that followed was loud and dramatic. He complained about elitist programs and systems rigged against real families. Jenna repeated it at a school fundraiser like it was gospel. No one realized the person who had set those exact rules was standing near the raffle table writing checks for next quarter's supplies. At a kid's birthday party, someone nudged me during cake cutting. Said something like, "Bet you feel like part of the parenting club now, huh?" I just smiled, grabbed a juice box, and walked over to the other side of the yard. There was no need to argue anymore. They depended on what I built. Whether they knew it or not didn't matter. They showed up. They followed the structure. They met the deadlines, all while still pretending I was just the child-free cousin with nothing to contribute. I let them keep pretending. After the first year, we expanded the program again. Summer science camps, weekend robotics clubs, and free school lunches got added to the mix. The applications doubled. We opened new slots, adjusted staffing, and shifted budgets to meet the demand. Some schools even built permanent weekend labs just to host our workshops. My brother's oldest kid signed up for the robotics program. The first time he came home with a 3D printed keychain and a basic circuit board, my brother went on a whole speech about how grateful he was to whoever is behind this genius thing. He posted a photo with a caption thanking the foundation for filling in the gaps that parents can't always manage. Still no idea where the money came from. Around that time, a few of my cousins started getting louder with their praise. They said the foundation had saved their sanity and helped them keep food on the table. One even suggested we should find out who the donor was so they could be nominated for a community leadership award. That same cousin once told me I was the most self-centered person she'd ever met. Meanwhile, more relatives tried to apply, and not all of them qualified. One aunt was denied access to the daycare support because her adult daughter, who lived with her, wasn't working or enrolled in school. Another cousin got rejected from a coding program for failing to complete the entry modules. They both called the system rigged and classist. One cousin, halfway through a wine glass, asked me if I had anything to do with the foundation. Half joking, half curious. I laughed it off and changed the subject. I kept a strict distance in public. No interviews, no press, no branded materials linking it to my company. On paper, I was just another business leader who donated when asked. Behind the scenes, I attended every strategy meeting, approved every new program, and reviewed every funding cycle. I even pitched a transportation stipend initiative at a school board session to cover bus fare and gas cards for parents attending evening classes. Jenna, now proudly part of the parent advisory group, called it the most thoughtful addition yet. She suggested naming the grant after the foundation's initials. She didn't realize the initials matched my company's legal abbreviation, though others had started to suspect. That month, I got a sealed envelope from a local nonprofit partner. Inside was a letter thanking the anonymous donor for transformational generosity. No name, no return address. I never opened it. I tossed it in my desk drawer and moved on. Jenna still hadn't figured it out. At a family dinner, someone asked if I could babysit last minute. I declined. Jenna muttered that I was still immature. I replied, without looking up, that I already supported enough kids. The room went quiet. For the first time in years, she didn't have a snarky response. Later that week, a cousin messaged me in a panic. She'd missed her financial literacy workshop deadline and lost her access to the childcare program. She wanted to know if I had a connection, someone I could call to fix it. I told her I didn't have that kind of pull and wished her luck. She left me on read. None of them needed to know. Their day-to-day lives ran smoother because of the structure I built. The systems they leaned on were mine. The policies that disqualified them when they slacked were also mine. Their dependence wasn't the point. Their respect wasn't the goal. The goal was function. They could complain, praise, joke, or pretend. None of it changed the facts. They lived inside the framework I created, followed rules I set, and showed up to programs I funded. Whether they knew it or not, I was already in the middle of everything they once told me I'd never understand. and I didn't have to raise a child to get there. At a school fundraiser, one of the volunteers handed out printed sponsor brochures with a list of contributors on the back. My company's logo was front and center. I hadn't planned it. It must have been added by the admin team before I caught it. A few relatives were there, including my cousin Brandon, who held the brochure long enough to notice. He flipped it, raised an eyebrow, and asked if it was just a coincidence. I said we supported education across the board and moved on. The next week, the energy shifted. A cousin who hadn't texted me in 3 years dropped off leftover casserole, just because. An aunt invited me to a Sunday dinner she used to forget to include me in. Even Jenna, who once claimed I'd probably die alone in a condo with a dog, started tagging me in school fundraiser posts and looping me into email chains about bake sales and committee votes. It felt too neat, too timed to be a coincidence. I showed up to one PTA meeting out of curiosity. People greeted me like I'd been there the whole time. Jenna introduced me like we were old planning buddies. Another cousin pulled out a chair for me. It was polite, too polite. I smiled when needed, clapped at the announcements, and left before the cookies were passed around. I didn't react. I didn't confront anyone. I just kept everything where it belonged, quiet and professional. My mother brought up a school newsletter later that week. It had a blurb about my company sponsoring STEM kits for underserved students. She held the page for a moment, then set it down. Didn't say much, but the look lingered longer than the words did. More invitations followed. Teacher appreciation luncheons, field trip planning, online surveys about curriculum changes. I kept declining, but the emails kept coming. At one point, someone from a local committee added me to a group chat meant for parents. I left without saying a word. At a community gala, a school principal went on stage and publicly thanked my firm for transforming access to education through bold, anonymous action. Jenna was in the crowd, seated 2 tables away. She didn't speak to me all night. The next morning, the family group chat buzzed with vague messages. Someone asked who really funded that amazing program. Another cousin posted a thinking face emoji. No one said my name, but the shift was obvious. The guessing had started. That same month, we launched a rental assistance grant tied to program participation. Parents who were enrolled in classes or had kids in our after-school care could apply for emergency housing support. Within a week, nearly half the people in our extended network had applied or passed the info along. One of my cousins called the program a lifesaver in a comment thread. Another tagged a friend and said, "Whoever runs this deserves an award." Nobody asked me directly, but suddenly the tone in group chats changed. I wasn't the selfish one anymore. I was the successful one. No apologies, just a rewrite. Behind the scenes, we tightened everything. Missed too many sessions? Suspension. Failed to log attendance? Temporary removal. It wasn't punishment, it was consistency. But it didn't go unnoticed. My brother's wife missed 2 reporting deadlines in a row. Her access got paused. She complained to my mom about how unfair it was. My mom repeated it during lunch. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Everything was out in the open now, without being said. They still couldn't admit it, but their actions showed it. They wanted the help. They just didn't want to admit who it came from. They weren't looking for a relationship. They were looking for relief, and I had become the system behind it. No one needed to say thank you. They already followed my rules. A regional funding shift forced us to pause one of the Saturday learning labs. It was a temporary suspension, but the reaction came fast. Emails flooded in within hours. Parents asked why their kids couldn't attend. Some demanded answers from school coordinators. One of them was Jenna. Her child had been in the robotics group at that exact site. She took to her social media and posted a half rant about mysterious funding cuts and favorites being played. She didn't name names, but the message was clear to anyone paying attention. A few mutuals reshared it. One cousin tagged me in the comments, then quickly untagged me again. Later that week, my aunt called. Jenna was furious. She asked if I had any contacts or could pull some strings to get the lab reopened early. I told her I wasn't involved in operations or politics. She didn't push further. I didn't make a call. I didn't send an email. I let the system work. 2 months later, the lab reopened, but with new thresholds. Families had to meet updated benchmarks to re-enroll. Jenna's household no longer qualified. Another post followed. She complained about how people with money build systems just to watch others squirm under them. Again, no names, but everyone in our circle knew who she meant. That month, a cousin got married. There was a baby shower attached to the event. I didn't get an invite. Later, I found out Jenna had been part of the planning committee. No one confronted me directly, but people talked. Someone apologized in passing. I just kept my calendar open and stayed home. At that point, most of the family had figured it out. They weren't dumb. The signs were all there, the logos, the speeches, the sudden shift in how people treated me. But no one ever asked outright. To acknowledge it meant admitting just how much they relied on me. One cousin did send a card. It had no return address and no signature. Just a simple thank you written in blue ink. I kept it in a drawer. Around that time, I pushed another program update. We added quarterly check-ins, stricter attendance logs, and a new performance rubric for continued eligibility. The casual participants started slipping off. A few called it too corporate. Others said it wasn't family-friendly anymore. The truth? They couldn't meet the standards. And they weren't used to being held accountable by someone they didn't respect. At a summer fair, Jenna's youngest walked past one of our booths. He asked why he wasn't allowed back in camp. Jenna froze mid-step, then dragged him away without answering. Not long after, a cousin cornered me at a community event. She asked if I had anything to do with the program. No half smiles, no sarcasm. I just asked. I told her yes. I built it from scratch. She nodded. That was it. No applause. No lecture. The room shifted, but no one said a word. Soon after, I appointed a new group of community advisors to help manage expansion. Most of them were in their 20s and 30s, none of them parents. They were skilled, organized, and driven. We chose based on capability, not family status. Then came the final blow. At a PTA meeting, Jenna waited until the crowd cleared, then walked straight up to me. She accused me of building the system just to control people like her. I told her she once called me selfish. I built this as proof she was right. Then I left. No one followed. The foundation released its annual report, and for the first time, my name was listed as the founder and major contributor. No more initials, no vague language, no hiding behind layers of admin, just black and white proof. The guessing games ended that day. Within 24 hours, the family group chat split in two. A few cousins sent congratulatory texts. An aunt shared the link to the report on Facebook and tagged me with clapping emojis. Others went quiet. One uncle quietly left the group. A couple of cousins unfollowed me. No drama, just digital exits. The divide was clear now, those who could accept it and those who couldn't. A few weeks later, during a town council session, Jenna stood up during the public comment section. She gave a short speech criticizing the program, called it selective, elitist, and out of touch with real families. She didn't use my name. She didn't have to. People in the room glanced in my direction when she spoke. I just sat in the back, took notes, and left when the session ended. I didn't respond. I redirected. That month, we launched a new round of microgrants, $1,000 stipends for parents retraining in tech, trades, or admin work. Jenna's husband had just been laid off. He applied, barely cleared the requirements. The grant was approved within 48 hours. No one flagged it. No one blocked it. It went through like any other. They never thanked me. They didn't mention it at events. But every time I attended a meeting or fundraiser, they were there, close enough to hear me speak, far enough not to speak first. It was like I'd become background, quietly powerful, unspoken, but always present. Then came the letter. A single mom who had been part of our early digital literacy class sent a handwritten note. She'd used the program to leave a controlling relationship, finish her community college degree, and open her own home-based business. Her daughter had enrolled in our coding camp the same summer Jenna's kid was denied a spot. The letter had no asks. Just thanks. That was the kind of outcome we kept building for. I doubled down after that. We hired 5 new full-time coordinators. None were related to me. All came from nonprofit or education backgrounds. I made it a point to keep the mission clean, no favors, no shortcuts. Our board meetings stayed focused on outcomes. No one cared who was or wasn't attending family brunches anymore. Outside the family bubble, my name started carrying weight. I got invited to sit on local education panels, city-led accelerator programs, and strategic grant boards. What started as a quiet response to being mocked was now shaping regional policy. One panel moderator introduced me as a leader in educational equity infrastructure. My inbox started filling with collaboration requests. The family, meanwhile, receded. No more casual texts. No shared memes. No invites for Thanksgiving. But this time, it didn't feel like rejection. It felt like retreat. They likely knew now, and they didn't know how to behave around someone who had gone from black sheep to architect. At a cousin's wedding, the MEMC listed community supporters during the reception. My name came last, highlighted for transforming educational access in underfunded schools. Half the room clapped. Jenna didn't. Her husband did. I kept my speech short. No emotional stories. No metaphors about children being the future. Just data, enrollment numbers, graduation rates, and a public thank you to teachers. Jenna left before dessert, quietly with her coat over her arm and her eyes on the floor. That was the last time I saw her in person. I didn't make any announcements. I didn't gloat. I didn't even watch her leave. I just finished my drink, signed a few thank you cards, and packed up the program flyers we'd placed near the entrance. They used to treat me like a glitch in the system. Now I was the system, and the ones who resented me had no choice but to live under the very rules they spent years mocking. I didn't build this to prove a point. I built it because I knew they never would. 5 years later, the fund supports over 9,000 families across 4 counties. It's no longer a pilot or a side project, it's part of the region's infrastructure now. School boards, nonprofits, and local businesses include it in their planning. The city's annual education report references our data alongside public services. We've added transportation stipends for night school parents, hardware grants for low-income students, and transitional housing for single parents finishing degrees. Every rollout is tied to measurable goals: attendance, graduation, employment. Nothing's open-ended. Everything's built to last. I bought a second property last year. It's now a co-working and childcare hub specifically for working mothers. The waiting list is 6 months long. We have legal clinics in the conference room, toddler art programs in the play area, and job interviews happening in soundproof pods upstairs. People come from 2 cities over just to apply. I don't show up to family events anymore. No one says I can't come, but my name isn't on invite lists either. Word gets passed around. There's a quiet understanding. It's not drama anymore. It's just distance. They all know now. There's no confusion left. But no one brings it up. Not in person, not online. The silence is the closest thing to acknowledgement they've offered. Jenna doesn't talk to me. We cross paths at school board meetings sometimes. She nods at the mayor, shakes hands with the other parents, then skips over me like I'm a chair. She fills out surveys about the grant programs. She uses the rideshare reimbursements, but we don't speak. That works fine. One of the first students we ever funded, 17 years old back then, is now in charge of a regional grant program. She runs a $2 million microgrant portfolio and sits on 2 advisory councils. Last quarter, her performance reviews were the highest on record. She's 22. Some of her coworkers are twice her age and still follow her lead. My company got a Civic Innovation Prize. I didn't attend the ceremony. I sent my operations director in my place and used the award announcement to pitch a new donor circle. We raised $300,000 in under 48 hours. A few months back, my brother's wife lost her part-time retail job. She applied for an upskilling stipend to finish her bookkeeping certification. She qualified. Her application went through like anyone else's. I didn't touch the file. No one flagged it. The system didn't care about her last name, and that was the point. My father, during a quiet morning coffee, told me I hadn't done what they expected, but I'd done what was needed. That was all he said. That was enough. Publicly, I'm a civic leader now. Privately, I'm the relative who proves you don't have to be a mom to build something that raises people up. At one university, a small business accelerator bears my company's name. The mural by the door says, "Impact over inheritance." A little girl from our first coding camp sent a letter. She drew a bridge and wrote, "You helped my mom walk across." That's the legacy. Not the one they wanted, but the one that works.